Got to tweak the engine a little bit.
I'm Bruce KiVo, MMA Confidential, here on top of the MoNKeY Bars in Tompkins Square Park in New York City with Akira star of The Ultimate Fighter. How are you, brother?
I'm all good, man. It's on top of the MoNKeY Bars and playing a monkey for another day, you know, just being natural.
You're certainly making waves on The Ultimate Fighter. You're the man over there. That last fight, which I watched Wednesday night, a lot of people say you tapped. To me, it looked like you really didn't tap, and if you were in trouble, you wouldn't be walking around right now. Talk me through that fight.
You're more certainly right. You know, if I was in trouble there, I would be out for eight months at least. You know, you can see on my website too. They posted pictures now and animated GIFs from different video angles, from different camera angles, and you see clearly that I didn't tap. You know, you can see it from above, and you can see it from Herb Dean's side. If you look at it like this, of course, it looks like I tapped. You know, but then again, you know, my job is to fight. Herb Dean has been reffing so many fights, and he really knows how his heel is supposed to look like and what a tap is and whatnot. But, you know, I got a clear conscience with that because I know in my heart that I didn't tap. Then again, as I said it before, you know, even the truth is a point of view. And if I would go like, hey, look, there's a bird, and you say, no, that's a UFO, you know, who's right, who's wrong, you know. So the world is how you see it. But for myself, I know it wasn't a tap, but it wasn't one of my greatest performances either. But you know, cutting 22 pounds in one day, and being able to stand on my feet and win, that's what I take from this win. You know.
That you said that was a near-death experience, losing all that weight. You lost what, 28 pounds?
No, 22 pounds.
22 pounds in how long?
In 28 hours, you know, because we had a little spy in the house, you know, and he was telling us everything. This time we made a mistake listening to him because his own team was playing a game on him. So we listened to him, and I was 100% sure that I was not going to fight. So I was not paying attention to keep my weight low. So I was just eating pizzas and popcorn that night, and then they played this game on us. So I had to cut those 22 pounds in 28 hours, and we know that there's not going to be any fat loss in that sense. It was all liquid, you know, all body fluids coming out. And yeah, the last couple of 2-3 pounds was a near-death experience, and I will never do that again in my life. But you know, I came to do my job, and I did, and I won. That's it.
Were you exhausted after the fight ended?
I was exhausted in the locker room. I was exhausted, right? I was exhausted before the fight. Double vision, the whole process was like, it was not a great experience, you know. It's like just had to. It was a survival mode, you know. My job is to fight, and I fought. So you know, I what I take out of this is that my great like my worst feeling and my on my worst day, I can stand on my legs and I can perform. So that's everything. That's all that is, you know.
Seemed like there was a lot of hatred between you and Dustin after the fight. Did it still exist, or did you guys make peace, or what's the story? Is there hatred towards Dustin, or? There was
never really hatred from my side. It was just that, you know, you live so tight together, you know, and you wake up one morning, you know, who's the first person to mess with, or who like, you know, it's hard to keep your emotions in check in the house, and now they chose to show me going crazy and all that, you know. And after the fight, everything was cool again. You know, we had a pizza together, and everything was cool. You know, we settled it in the cage, and we both knew that, you know, that's how it goes. You know, we settle things in the cage. You know, talk is cheap.
Settled over a slice.
Yes.
Was it with extra cheese or what?
No, it was literally my favorite pizza is pepperoni. You know, so I cooked a pepperoni pizza for us both, and we had a fun time. You know.
And you know, Akira, this is MMA Confidential, so. Let me know, did you win The Ultimate Fighter?
You know, you got $5 million in your pocket, I tell you everything. You know, walking around with all these secrets, you know, you have to stay tuned and see, man. It was like Dana White never lied when he said it's going to be the best season ever, and it's a great season, and it has only started. It's up to the fifth episode now, and it's just gonna get crazier and crazier. You know, imagine we're already mental in the house, and another week, so it's gonna be better and better.
What was it like being in the house?
You know,
would you do it again?
I would not do it again. I would not do it again. It was a one-time experience. It was great, you know. But you can never ever realize how it really is until you experience it. You know, I've been following the show for 7 years, being locked in like that, no TV, no phones, no computers, no magazines. The only book we were allowed to bring was the Bible, and even that gets a little bit crazy after a while, you know. So, you know, you wake up, you see each other, and then whatever feeling you have, you got to project that, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm happy that they let us train. If we wouldn't be able to train, that place would turn into a crime scene, you know.
And you know, you're not with Team Golden Glory anymore. I know you were training with Alistair Overeem. That must have been awesome. What was that like?
Yeah, Alistair Overeem is you know, we're totally different weight classes. He's like double the size I am. But
Triple, brother.
Triple. Now he's triple. You know, it's like this guy's a monster, man. But he taught me so many good things. You know, in life. I lived in his house for a couple of months, and back in the days when I was living in Holland, back and forth. And he been supporting my career so much, you know. I owe him a lot. You know, he's a great fighter. We all seen as like top level striker, and he gave me a lot of good advice in life, and I keep using him in the cage, you know.
And now you're at Renzo Gracie Academy, Team Renzo. What's it like training with not only Frankie Edgar, but you're also training with Eddie Alvarez? What's that like? Yeah.
You know, these guys are machines. You know, you see them fight. You know, they're complete fighters. You know, brutal striking. We saw Frankie Edgar put on his performance last 2 weeks now against Gray Maynard, and Eddie Alvarez. We know from before the guy's a KO machine. So, like, you know, these guys are my training partners. I spar with these guys. I just feel like, you know, nothing can touch me, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a great time, you know. I've trained at Renzo Gracie Academy, you know, getting out of the house. You know, you gotta grow to your environment, and you have no option than being a great guy, you know. It's like Renzo Gracie and John Danaher and all these philosophers around them. It made me a better man, a better fighter every day, and I'm just very excited to put on a performance. My next fight is going to be a short one, and it's going to be a crazy fight. I'll tell you that.
How was your game improving training with Renzo and also with John Danaher? You're training with the best guys.
Yeah, these guys, man. I'll tell you. You know, there's so much knowledge. They have so much experience, not only life experience and experience from the mat. You know, they don't talk as cheap, as I said. You know, it's like they're not much talking. We don't talk so much. We just drill and train, and the silence itself speaks for itself. You know, you just have to raise your energy up to their level and be a part of it, and just sit on the roller coaster ride and buy a ticket. You know, it's like you have no option like than being a great man and a great fighter, because this is how the environment goes. You know.
Akira, you're a Swede with a Japanese nickname. Your last name sounds Italian. You don't look like a Swede. I picture like all these Brock Lesnar's walking around in Sweden. You know what I mean? Tell me about that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Look around yourself. These guys look American. I mean, like, what is a Swede? You know, what is an American? You know, it's like people in this country come from like 900 different countries and have different ethnicities. You know, my parents. They come from Azerbaijan, you know. It's a small country close to Russia and close to Armenia, very close to Armenia. And they went to Sweden in the 60s, you know, the late 60s. My father went to Sweden for some studies and this and that. So I was born and raised in Sweden. So and my nickname I got it in Brazil. I lived in Brazil.
From a Japanese guy, right?
Yeah. I was sharing dorms with the Japanese guys from back in the days of the Sakuraba, the Takada Dojo, you know, Sakuraba's team, and these guys couldn't pronounce my name, Hamid. You know, my real name is Hamid, so they just, you know, this is crazy, man. We cannot even pronounce your name. We'll give you a Japanese name, and after that, the Brazilian guys started calling me Akira too, and you know, I felt strange to be called Hamid again. So when I got back home 5 months later, my name was Akira, you know, and then I did some research, and Akira means bright, intelligent, everything I'm not. So no, I just see that the name fits me very well, and I'm very comfortable with Akira, you know.
And Sweden's like a melting pot, I guess now. And did you fight a lot in Sweden? Because you were talking about the garden. You know, like, tell us about the garden, brother.
Oh, the garden, man. The garden story was a story by itself. You know, in Sweden, when you translate garden, backyard, it turns into garden. you know, and I always thought the backyard was garden. It was always a little culture clash there. And then my teammates at Team Bisping, they explained to me, you know, like, what are you talking about, man? Garden is different. It's like a little place where you grow like vegetables and flowers and stuff.
You don't grow fighters.
No, you don't grow fighters in a garden, man. You gotta change it. So then I changed my word, backyard. But you know, that whole garden thing was literally when I grew up. You know, there was so many different ethnicities coming to Sweden back in the days. You know, and everybody was pissed off. You know, as kids. You know, you just had to settle things in the garden. You know, in the backyard and bare knuckle. You know, that was I grew up fighting with all kinds of guys. You know, and it was there was a challenge every day. You know, you just when you beat the biggest guy and the toughest guy, that's when you were the tough guy. So that was back then. You know, growing up in the streets, as I said, in the streets this is what I'm talking about. You know, growing up fighting.
And how'd you get into fighting? You know, like training, and who introduced you to that? How'd you get started?
Yeah, man, it's like I was living in the movies back in the days. You know, all these Van Damme movies. So I was like, you know, this tongue pull, you know, and all these bad characters in the movies. I wanted to beat them, you know. They always beat somebody up, and then I grew up and realized that these guys they don't even exist, you know. So I gotta do it for real. So I started with MMA, and it was 7 years ago. I started with MMA. I started in the age of 22, and I just loved it. I fell in love, man. It's like, you know, Vitor Belfort was a big reason to me starting, you know, that whole when he just charged Vanderlei Silva. Yeah. And I just, wow, man, I got to do this. And I started, and it was like, holy shit, this is my calling, you know. It was like from above, something like a signal, you know, and I got hooked.
And you're not just a fighter. You preach love, understanding, and in Sweden you were a diver in the military, right?
Yes. I was also the same thing there. I went for tryouts, you know. I was an aspirant, you know, for the Swedish Marine and the Swedish Army. So they put us through tests for 3 days and see who can become this diver, you know. And everybody wanted to be it. So we were like 45, 50 guys. We went to tryouts for 3 days to become a diver within the Swedish military / Marine, you know. So they picked me, and I was one of 12 to partake in this beautiful experience to become a Swedish Marine, you know, a Swedish diver.
Cool, brother. Final question. You lost 22 pounds in, what, 28 hours? What are your thoughts on fighters weighing in the day of the fight? Could that be healthier? I mean, should Frankie Edgar be fighting a guy like Gray Maynard, who's walking around at 180 to 200, who cuts down to 155, and then he's fighting Frankie at 180, and Frankie's still 155? You know, what's your thoughts on fighters weighing in the same day of the fight? Isn't that more fair?
Yeah, fair. You know, it's just still, you put your body still through that extreme to the extreme. You know, and you guys see, Frankie is a big evidence and a big proof of that. Weight cut is not about everything. You know, he beat the guy up, and that's how it goes. You know, it's like this whole weight cut history. You know, is like. It's not as good as everybody thinks. You know, it's like you drain your body and you feel.
It could be dangerous for the guy that cuts.
Sure, it could be dangerous too. So whatever rules and regulations the UFC, the state Nevada State Athletic Commission or the athletic commissions put up, that's their thing. But in the end, it's about the spirit, you know, and your heart. So that's what it comes down to, you know. It's not about the weight cut and who's going to be the biggest. We see that sometimes it doesn't even work out. So for me, it doesn't matter, you know. I just keep my weight around close as possible. You know, that's the best thing. You know, you get more, you gas quicker too by cutting a lot of weight. You know, but hey, we're just gonna wait and see what's gonna happen with that. You know.
Looking forward to the next episode of The Ultimate Fighter. And even though this is MMA Confidential, Akira, you're being silent, brother, but I respect it.
Yes. I gotta keep my mouth shut.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.